Hi, everybody. This is Brian. I'm here to just go over, in my opinion, the top 10 rides and attractions at the Disneyland Resort. Now, by Disneyland Resort, I mean Disneyland and Disney California Adventure. Now, having worked there for 3 years back in the early 2000s, I've been on practically every attraction in the park. So these are just a few of some of the best rides in the park. Now, there might not be um, some of the more popular attractions on there, but again, these are my opinions, but I do have some honorable mentions. I did have to update my list after going on um, one relatively new attraction, and that would be, well, you'll see that later. Okay, now we'll start with, in my humble opinion, what I believe is the number 10 best ride or attraction at Disneyland or Disney's California Adventure, and that would be Casey Jr.'s Circus Train. Now, a lot of you would probably be thinking, wait a minute, why that attraction? It seems like it's boring. No, it's not boring. It's very relaxing. Um, you get a nice little go around on a short little train ride that basically surrounds another attraction that's on my list here, the Storybook Land Canal Boats. So you get a good view of all the wonderful work that the Imagineers did in putting that smaller attraction together. So it's a great way to take a break, but it does tend to get busy during the day. Now, number 9 on my list here is Alice in Wonderland. Now, Alice in Wonderland was not an original attraction at Disneyland. It was it was added in. I believe it was during the '80s when they did their renovation of Fantasyland. Oh, I should say hi to everybody in chat here. Oh my gosh, what am I thinking here? Well, I see Francisco popped in. Oh, hi, Jonathan. How you doing, buddy? Oh, Rachel, my dear, how are you? And there's Sandy, of course. Debbie, my good friend. Um, glad you guys could make it for this live one. Now, as far as Alice in Wonderland goes, it's one attraction they do not have at the Magic Kingdom in Florida. It's one attraction that a lot of people wish was at the Magic Kingdom in Florida. Well, thank you, Rachel. That's very nice of you to say that. Um, but what they do with Alice in Wonderland is you basically are following Alice as she goes on her journey down the rabbit hole, following the white rabbit. And you basically get to ride on one of those caterpillars. At a certain point in the ride, you end up above a heated room in Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Oh, congratulations, Jonathan! I think I'm up to 43 now. um, as far as number 8 goes, number 8 was an attraction that I discussed earlier when I was going over Casey Jr., and that is the Storybook Land Canal Boats. Now, for those who don't know, Walt Disney's original concept of a theme park was something he called Disneylandia, which was basically a world of miniatures. And he basically brought that world of miniatures to life in the Storybook Land Canal Boats, where you basically ride in a little boat piloted by a trained cast member who goes over the narrations of the various stories that you see throughout your journey. Now, thank you, Jonathan. Um, the neat thing about Storybook Land Canal Boats is it's a very relaxing ride. It's great for the grown kids and the young kids as well. The cast members there are very well trained, and they're very good storytellers. But just remember that when it comes time to exit that attraction, to make sure you keep your hands away from the docks because, well, you don't want your fingers pinched. Now, number 7 on my top 10 list was an attraction that I saw as my all-time favorite attraction when I was a kid, and that was Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Now, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, when I was in training at Disneyland as a cast member, it was always explained to us that there's only one ride at Disneyland, and that's Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Everything else is an attraction. So that's why I refer to these as attractions rather than rides, with the exception of Mr. Toad. Now, Mr. Toad's takes you on a wild adventure, starting in Toad Hall and going all throughout London. And I guess you could say that Mr. Toad is, Mole is probably a little bit of a better driver than me. For those that don't know, my vision is horrendous, and that's why I don't drive. But Mr. Toad goes on his wild adventures through London, blowing up TNT factories, going through police barricades, going through Winky's Tavern, and eventually getting hit by a train, and, well, visiting the not so nice place Afterlife. But it is a top 10 attraction. It's one of the best rides in Fantasyland. Always has a line. They had it over in Walt Disney World of the Magic Kingdom, but it was replaced by Winnie the Pooh. Not that I'm saying it's a bad ride. I'm just saying that there are some people who are a little bit salty because Winnie the Pooh took out Mr. Toad's over at the Magic Kingdom. Now, number 6 on my list is a relatively new attraction. And that one opened up with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And that is the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. Now, Smuggler's Run is a unique opportunity that allows you to pilot and defend and repair the Millennium Falcon as you traverse the stars and attempt to acquire some Calaxium and bring it to the rebels under the guidance of Hondo Ohnaka. I got to ride that attraction the first time during the preview of Galaxy's Edge. So I was one of the first people to watch that, to see that attraction live. Oh, that's cool. That's cool, Jonathan. Oh, hi there, Mandy. Welcome in. Now, Smuggler's Run, my first time ever riding that attraction, I got to be one of the 2 pilots. And, well, that first time was kind of a disaster because right before the attraction was over, we had a critical failure. Because of that critical failure, they allowed us to get a re-ride. And so after attempting to pilot it the first time and failing, I got to switch seats and be the right pilot, where I got to put it into hyperdrive, which is one thing that every Star Wars fan has been fantasizing for years about. And that second time, we managed to complete the ride, but the Falcon was still beat up pretty bad. I think my piloting wasn't the best, but that's okay. It was still um, well worth riding, well worth the experience, and definitely a top 10 attraction at the Disneyland Resort. Now, number 5 is a ride that did not open with the park. It opened up in the 90s. And so it opened up in the 90s in Adventureland. It was originally sponsored by AT&T, and that was the Indiana Jones Adventure. Now, this is absolutely nothing like the Indiana Jones stunt show. Well, hi, Chris. Hi, Margie. This is absolutely nothing like the stunt show in Florida. This, I guess you'd call it the sister attraction to Dinosaur at Animal Kingdom. So essentially runs the same type of track, same type of vehicles. It's just an entirely different story. Where Dinosaur, you're going back in time to find this iguanodon. In Indiana Jones, you're basically exploring the Temple of Mara. And if you're not a big fan of snakes, then make sure that you sit all the way on the right-hand side. I'm joking. If you're not a fan of snakes, your safest bet is to sit all the way on the left, because there is a little bit of a surprise there for you on the right. Now, my number 4 favorite attraction at the Disneyland Resort is one that a lot of people wouldn't really think of as a top-rated attraction, but I absolutely love it because it's my favorite land in the Disneyland. And that land is Toontown. So my number 4 favorite attraction at the Disneyland Resort is Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. Now, this is a ride. It's basically what you would get if you crossed the teacups with Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, with a little bit of zaniness to go with it. You basically ride in not Benny the Cab, but Lenny the Cab, as he takes you through Toontown, and protects you. Basically, you're trying to avoid the dip and avoid all the troublesome weasels. It's a fun ride. It's a great way to kind of just take a load off, get some AC. Great attraction. Now, my number 3 favorite attraction is over at Disney's California Adventure. Now, Disney's California Adventure, my number 3 favorite ride would have to be Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. Now, this was a rebrand of the Hollywood Tower Hotel, the Tower of Terror, where they gave it some theming for the Guardians of the Galaxy when that became a huge hit. And in my humble opinion, it's better than California Adventure's original Tower of Terror. The theming for Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout is amazing. It takes you up to the top of the Collector's headquarters to destroy a generator, and you basically go through all the drop sequences accompanied to one of 6 various songs. The neat thing about it is it does have the same type of programming as the original Tower of Terror, meaning every ride is going to be 100% random. There's no 2 rides that are going to be the same. So you have definite rewritability, especially if you want to attempt to get all 6 songs, which I have done. Not in one day, but I have heard all 6. Now, number 2 is an attraction that typically gets a long, long line in California Adventure. And in answer to your question, Chris, have I been to Walt Disney World before? The answer to that, in a word, no. However, I am due to make my first trip at the end of October of this year. So that is going to be absolutely amazing. But my number 2 attraction is over at California Adventure. And this is another attraction that I got to experience before the land it was in opened up. And that one is in Cars Land, Radiator Springs Racers. Now, that attraction is that attraction, Radiator Springs Racers, is kind of a combination of a dark ride and a race. So a lot of people have compared it to Test Track over at Epcot. I have never been at Epcot yet, so I can't make that comparison. You don't get to design your own car, so that's one thing that's different. And you do have the race, which it's fun. Whether you win or lose, it's all. Oh, you've never been on it, Rachel? You can always check out my ride video on my channel. But it's a combination of a dark ride and a high speed race. Although I do believe the speed of the cars when it leaves the dark ride portion is probably around like 35 miles an hour. It's not really fast. It just feels like it is. Now, before we get to my number 1 pick, I do have a few honorable mentions. First of which, I have to give a shout out to Disneyland's Winnie the Pooh. If I weren't able to mention Winnie the Pooh, I would probably be yelled at by my girlfriend Jennifer, because she's probably the biggest Tigger fan I've ever met. I guess you could say that Test Track and Radiator Springs Racers are similar, but with different theming. But I kind of disagree, because you don't actually get the whole design the ride feature with it. But for our Winnie the Pooh over here in Disneyland, they changed out the old Country Bear Jamboree theater and turned that into the Winnie the Pooh ride. Now, because a lot of people were sad to see Country Bears go, they decided to leave a little memento in our Winnie the Pooh ride. Oh, and Mandy, I kind of agree with you there. I kind of agree with you about the snakes and spiders. But for our Winnie the Pooh, once you pass through the Heffalumps and Woozle scene, and you go under that first honey wall, if you look up and behind you, you'll see a little Easter egg, an homage to the original Country Bears. The 3 trophies that hung out above the doors as you leave the theater, Max, Buff, and Melvin, are right there in the Winnie the Pooh ride. Also, if you pay attention in the Heffalumps and Woozles room, the balloon that has Winnie the Pooh in it actually used to be the original swing that Teddy Bar would swing on from the theater. Now, another honorable mention, I would have to say, would be one of the original attractions from 1955, the famous, iconic Jungle Cruise. Now, the Jungle Cruise It's been around forever. They've got their corny jokes. It's essentially the same attraction at Disney World, except a few different scenes. They don't have the plane at Disneyland, and they don't have the temple at Disneyland. But everything else is essentially the same. Now, Jungle Cruise, if you like the corny jokes, you're going to love this one. It's basically the same ride. Also, another honorable mention would have to be at Disney California Adventure, the Incredicoaster. Now, some people don't like the launch, which is understandable. That's why so yeah, Chris, oh yeah, I have heard about the about Owl passing, or about Mr. Toad handing the deed over to Owl and the Winnie the Pooh. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. And Rachel, you never been on Incredicoaster? Well, Incredicoaster is basically the exact same ride as California Screaming. The only difference is they themed it for the Incredibles. Absolutely it's a fun ride, but it can get a long wait. Why, thank you, Rachel. I appreciate that. It can get a long wait, especially if there's a lot of teenagers in the parks. And it does have that one inversion. So if you are averse to going upside down, you probably won't be a big fan of it. Now, my next honorable mention, these are all excellent attractions, but they just didn't quite make my top 10, would be the two riverboats along the rivers of America at in the Frontierland area, the Mark Twain and the Columbia. Now, I know that Magic Kingdom in Florida does not have the Columbia, but they do have something similar to the Mark Twain, the Liberty Bell. It's basically the same boat. The big difference between the Mark Twain and the Columbia is the Columbia was more of a well, you never know, Rachel. The Columbia is more like this model of the sailing ship Columbia, which was the first sailing vessel to carry the Stars and Stripes around the world. It's a great relaxing boat ride if you want to kind of get some relaxing in, not have to worry about a long line because it hardly ever has a line. Same with the Mark Twain. It's a great way to relax and take a load off for about 15 minutes or so as it goes around the river. So each one of those two definitely deserve your time. Now, my next two are in the same land, over in Disneyland. These are still honorable mentions. Next one on my list here is Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, for those who have never been on Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland, definite must do, because it's slightly longer than the one in Florida. And the reason there's a drop on Pirates of the Caribbean in the Disneyland version is because the show building is on the other side of the railroad tracks. So they need a way to get your boat on the other side of the railroad tracks. So they basically had the two drops go under the tracks, and boom, you're in the show building. Spoiler alert. The same holds true for my next honorable mention, which is the Haunted Mansion. See, in Disneyland, the stretching room for the Haunted Mansion is actually an elevator that takes you down underground. Oh, well, as I was mentioning before, Chris, I have yet to go to Walt Disney World, but I do plan on visiting very soon. But with Disneyland, their Haunted Mansion has the same thing where they have to get you in the show building, which is on the other side of the railroad tracks. absolutely amazing ride. From what I understand, the biggest difference between the Disneyland Haunted Mansion and the Walt Disney World Haunted Mansion is that there's some scenes that are in the main queue in the Disneyland version, like the busts that are actually in the ride portion of the Haunted Mansion in Florida. And yeah, Chris, you're right. There's no elevator in the Florida one. Basically, what happens is the ceiling to stretch it goes up, which is a pretty cool effect. Now, a lot of people are going to put my next honorable mention, my final honorable mention before I get to my number one. A lot of people are going to put these attractions as their must-do top attractions. And those are the 4 mountains at Disneyland. And by 4, I mean the first tubular steel roller coaster, the Matterhorn, as one. Space Mountain, which opened in 1977 at Disneyland. Or no, 1975 at Disneyland. Thunder Mountain Railroad, which opened in 1980, and Splash Mountain. Now, Splash Mountain will be very soon to be closing down to undergo a reimagining to The Princess and the Frog. Now, my views on that are mixed. I'm a big fan of the original Splash Mountain. Didn't much like Princess and the Frog when I saw it in the theater, but I figured, kind of need the diversity there. Thunder Mountain Railroad has seen a lot of upgrades over the past few years. The last major refurbishment saw some projection mapping inside the big mountain, where you see some explosions. If you've never been on it before, oops, I'm sorry. And Space Mountain does get a lot of overlays. Like, for example, from May 4th through September, usually they'll have the Hyperspace Mountain overlay, which is a great Star Wars overlay for Space Mountain. Oh, and Chris, no, I actually did not know that. That's thank you for that bit of information. I did not realize it was based on an actual mansion in Baltimore. I actually thought it was closer to further south. But thank you for that. Now, Space Mountain. Well, Debbie, I completely understand. I didn't ride Space Mountain until I was about 13 years old, and I was still terrified of it. But now it's absolutely a blast. And Debbie, when you finally get out here, I'd be more than happy to take you to Disneyland. It might be my pleasure. Now, again, Space Mountain, it's basically, if you take it out of the building, it's just a typical wild mouse. So it only goes about 35 miles an hour, even though the fans inside the ride makes it feel like you're going a lot faster. But it's a great fun ride. Definite must do. Now, for my number one favorite attraction, I actually had to update my list to add this one in there. And that one is Rise of the Resistance over in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. The theming, the imagination, and just the production value alone was absolutely amazing. Definitely the best ride on property, hands down. I do understand that it is essentially the same attraction in Disneyland as in Walt Disney World. When I do go in Florida, I plan on going on rides just because, well, it's a heck of a good ride. And just the absolute immersiveness that it puts you through. And those little trackless vehicles are absolutely adorable. And in answer to that question there, Chris, no, there's not going to be a mine train in Disneyland. However, we are getting Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railroad in the newly reimagined Toontown when that reopens in 2023. So if you're planning on coming out here to Disneyland next year, summer would probably be your best bet to see all the new happenings. But be warned, Toontown will be crowded because of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railroad. Now, does anybody have any questions about any attractions that they would want to know about some of the rides at Disneyland? Oh, and Mandy, there is another trackless ride at the Disneyland Resort, and that would be the Luigi's Rollicking Roadsters over in Cars Land. When Cars Land was first imagined, they repurposed the old Flying Saucers ride, and they called it Luigi's Flying Tires. Well, that one was a nightmare because controlling those tires was too difficult for people to figure out. You lean which way you want to go, and nobody could figure it out. It was just too alien of a concept for people to get. They even tried making it more fun by throwing some beach balls in there so that you can push around with your hovering tires. But most of the time, people would just get on, not know what to do, and their tire would just sit there for the 3 minutes that they'd be on the ride, which is not fun for anybody. I think that's why they got rid of the tires and brought in Rollicking Roadsters, the first trackless ride at Disneyland. Now, we do also have a Buzz Lightyear attraction. Oops. Now, Chris, your question about Alice in Wonderland, that's a good one. How Alice in Wonderland takes you outside. If you're lucky enough to be on the ride and outside when the fireworks are going off, yeah, the only problem is you're not outside very long on that ride. You're pretty much indoors most of the time, except for the very beginning of the ride. Oh, hi there, Tim. Thank you for popping in. But yeah, the ride that you want to be on for the fireworks, I would say, would be the teacups, because that ride is open to the sky, and if you're lucky, you can get a good view of it. But the teacups, not really my thing. For one, adults are kind of a bit too big to get in those little tiny teacups. And number two, well, there's a lot better rides than the teacups at Disneyland. Let's be honest here. Now, we do also have the original Dumbo, which, as I've heard it referred to, is what's called an aerial carousel. Basically, it's a carousel that you control the height. Nice. Now, other attractions at California adventure that I didn't mention that are still absolutely amazing is soaring over California, is soaring around the world. Now, do I think they'll bring back the People Mover in Tomorrowland at Disneyland? In a word, no. What happened with the People Mover? Well, with the track of the People Mover was a tragedy. They were looking. See, Disneyland is very much a locals park, and locals kind of got a little bit bored by the People Mover, so it didn't really have that high of a ridership. So when they took down the original People Mover trains, they decided, hey, let's put something thrilling here. And they put this ride, Rocket Rods, up on the old People Mover track. And it was supposed to be a high speed attraction. But unfortunately, the track was not designed for a high speed attraction. So it caused the track to just wear, just prematurely. And there is some structural damage to the People Mover track in such a way that they just wouldn't be able to redo the People Mover unless they were to completely demolish the whole ride system and rebuild it. And that would cost upwards of probably over $1 billion to do right. So unfortunately, we're not getting the People Mover back. I wish we would, but we're not. Hopefully, in the next few years, Disneyland will have their Tomorrowland reimagined so that we can actually have some better, more futuristic rides, more futuristic things to do. Also, other attractions that are definitely worth seeing, especially if you've never seen it before, are attractions like Peter Pan's Flight, the new Snow White's Enchanted Wish. Now, these are both original dark rides. Snow White has been reimagined, and it does have an actual ending to the ride, unlike the original one. And it does have a little bit of a brighter ending at the end, which makes it a lot better for people who've never been to Disneyland before. Also, Pinocchio's Daring Journey, which is a dark ride that was put in Fantasyland after the renovation in the 80s. It's a great little ride. Hardly ever has a wait, so give it some love if you ever decide to come down here. Now our carousel, it's not Prince Charming's carousel, it's King Arthur's carousel. Basically the same thing. All white horses, fun little carousel if you're a fan of carousels. But it looks like, oh wow, I've been on here for 38 minutes. Oh my gosh. All right, well, my voice is starting to crinkle on me because I've been talking all day. But I want to thank everybody for coming in. Leave a thumbs up if you haven't already. And you guys have a blessed day today. Bye.